Welcome to episode 5 of the Trav's Outfitter podcast. I'm your host, Shane Carlson, joined by Travis Youthy, owner of Trav's Outfitter, and general manager Mike Fairchild on the end. We're going to talk about small business in Watertown today, a lot of different aspects of it. There's a lot going on in small business in the little community of Watertown right now.
Yeah, there sure is. The reason that we're late getting going on this podcast is I was just on the phone with Joy Nelson. So, yes, there's a lot going on in Watertown.
So we work here at a small business. Ultimately, what drives the success of a small business, and how do you measure that?
You want me to go, Mike?
I do want you to go. We'll have the attorneys available later for whatever you say.
I think what drives the success of a small business ultimately is the customer. The customer decides. But I think what drives the success, now I've seen it many times where you can be kind of indifferent and still have great success, or you can really, really care and have great success. So I think it's just a matter of having the right product that the consumer wants, the right services that the consumer wants, and delivering it to them in a way that the consumer wants to consume them.
Yeah, I would say the other part about it that drives the success is a work ethic. People talk about work-life balance and all of this and keeping your job separate from your home. It's not possible with a small business. If you own or run a small business, you have to find that work-life balance within all of the working. Because you married this thing, right? Travis,
yes.
Travis in 2003, this was his baby. And people see the successes of business owners later in their career where they may have a little extra time off and they can go on a trip. But they didn't see them back in 2004, working all day at the store till 8 p.m. and then paying the bills and then going through the payroll and things like that. And it's a lot of work. And I think that really determines the success of small businesses. Are you willing to commit the majority of your time to making it a success?
Yes, I would agree with that for sure. And the other part of it is to try to do it in a way that's honorable. We talk about that a lot. We've talked about that in other podcasts. And you can shortcut a lot of things, but if you want it to be sustainable, if you want it to be able to grow, it's just all part of it. You just have to do those things.
And so with small businesses, they kind of weave together a fabric of a community, right? And especially here in Watertown, where it's a very civic-driven, these small businesses are involved in events that are going on around the community. So what's the impact on that community when we lose a small business that's involved and has been around a while?
Well, I think, some of the impact is emotional. I mean, there's always this thought that there's never enough in your small town. We don't have this, we don't have that, whether it be ball fields, whether it be trampoline parks, whether it be big box clothing stores. There's always this thought that someone's got more than we do and better. And that's the truth. I mean, south of us, 100 miles, is a couple 100,000 people in the Sioux Falls area. They're always going to have more than us. There's just nothing about it. But it's so when we lose something, there's even more of that feeling, I believe, that people are like, oh, now we really don't have anything. We lost another one, And so there's that emotional standpoint or that situation that we got to get through first as small business owners, because it affects us all when we lose one.
Yeah, it sounds crazy, but there's a grieving process that people go through at different levels, right? Some of the events in the last couple of weeks in Watertown, I myself as a business person, small business person, I'm going through a grieving process, just like I've lost somebody that's important to me. And when you have a small business that closes for whatever reason, I grieve because I know what it took to get that small business to where it was, to make it profitable, to employ people, and to offer goods and services and to people. I know what that takes. And so often the average person that hasn't been in our shoes maybe doesn't know exactly what it takes, and so they're a bit indifferent, right? They're like, well, it's no problem. There'll be another store coming around the bend. It's no problem. They'll take care of me. To me, it's not that way. I just don't see it that way. Yeah, you can get products from another store or you can get services from another place, but it's not the same. It doesn't have the same feel to it. And, I get accused all the time of being a baby boomer instead of a Gen Xer. And so maybe that's some of it, Shane. I don't know. But there is a grieving process that we go through when we lose things. It's just a sad day for our community when we lose things.
And Travis, you mentioned a word there, feel. When you enter a small business, whether it be a retail store, grocery store, whatever it might be, you get a different feel than maybe a big box retail store. Can you kind of expand on that? And Mike, I'd be interested to hear what you have to say too about kind of the differences, what set small businesses apart from those big box stores.
From small businesses that I shop at here in town, I mean, the biggest part of it is I know those people. We know them. Mm-hmm. They're our neighbors. They're our friends. They have kids on our ball teams. You know what I mean? We're in other community events and other civic boards that you sit on and stuff like that. I mean, you just know people. So it's like you're helping a friend, right? That's what the feel like is for me when I go into small businesses versus the box stores where, yes, we know those people, but it's not the same. The welcome's not the same. The greeting's not the same. There's not that appreciation that you have in small, local, independent, and not just small, just local, independent businesses. Because we have a lot of family businesses that are independently owned that are nice size. I mean, we have 2 great car dealerships with Watertown Ford and Sharp Chevrolet and GM. I mean, they're the real thing. So it's different that way.
Yeah, one guy we should talk, see if we can get him on our podcast is Danny Livingston. He's been in the shoe business forever. He's the general manager, national sales manager for Eastland Shoe Company. Eastland shoes years and years ago were a big deal, and Eastland's still going. But Danny was in our store. He's been in retailers all over the U.S., big box retail, medium-sized retail, family shoe store chains, and stores like ours. And when he was in our store 2 years ago, he said, you know what? He goes, when you walk through the door of this place, you can feel this place has a soul. And I thought, that was an interesting comment for him to make. He said, it has a soul, and in that soul, you can almost feel it breathe. And I think that's the difference. That's the difference between a small and medium-sized home-owned business versus a big box business. There's just a different, it's less sterile feeling. So,
and we talked a little bit before the show. You kind of can get more personality out of a local small business too, and I think that's appealing to people, and there's a longing for that. Do you feel that today?
Well, I think it depends on what personality the owner's on that day.
That was a jab, Shane. Hey, he just gave me the jab. Yeah,
you're right, Shane. Absolutely. Each business takes on its own personality, and a lot of it's driven from the leaders and the owner. I mean, that's where it is, and that's what people want. People know Travis. They know what he's like, so they know what it's going to be like here, and they love that. And you can go right on down Highway 212 and turn the corner at Broadway or Maple and go that way to Uptown, and all the small businesses, all the independently owned businesses along the way, all have their own personality.
Yeah, we talked about it just a little bit, Shane, but I think we should talk about it here on the podcast. But so if you go for a shopping experience, and let's just say you go to Sioux Falls and you go in the mall, and you have a teenage son or daughter and they want to shop for shoes, And there's probably 8 or 10, maybe more stores that they can shop for in the mall in Sioux Falls. What you find, though, is, and I use the example, I'll use it here, Chuck Taylor, right? So for whatever reason, the Chuck Taylor sort of excitement goes up and down and up and down and up and down. And right now it seems like it's at a fervor again. But every store you go into, there's the black Chuck Taylor. And right next to it is the white Chuck Taylor. And then, depending upon the size of the store, you might have 3 or 4 other colors. That's what happens. That's the homogenization that happens in retail when you have big chains or big stores and you have professional buyers. Because professional buyers, Mike and I don't want to say we're amateur buyers. Maybe we're journeyman buyers, but I wouldn't call us professional buyers. But when you have professional buyers, frankly, they don't look at the shoes. They don't dissect the shoes. They don't want to know how the shoes are built. What they want to know is, how many units have you sold in the last year? How many units have you sold in the last 6 months? How many units have you sold in the last month? How many units have you sold in the last 6 days? And that's how they make their decision on what they put in these stores, right? I mean, it's not about, they're not building a brand. They don't want to have something different. They don't want to have a different sort of feel or personality to their store. They have somebody above them to answer to. And so what they buy has to turn. And if it doesn't turn, and if it doesn't show the profit they need, then they don't have a job anymore. And that's how you end up with this homogenation. I have people that say it to me all the time. They say, man, you guys have a lot of choices and they're different. That's the personality part.
Do you, in your opinion, do you think we're trending towards that as a not only just as a community here in Watertown, but statewide, nationwide, that homogenation?
Oh, I think we're not trending. We've been there a long time. I mean, big box retail did that. I mean, that came out here 10, 15 years ago, that homogenation. You can find the same type of shirt, the same type of pants. Everybody, we call it, it's not R&D in retail. We call it rip off and duplicate. Mm-hmm. That just happens amongst our vendors all the time. They just rip each other off, try to recreate that wagon wheel just a little bit. They move the spoke 1 inch and they call that theirs then. So yeah, we've been going down that road for a long time. And a lot of it's because these stores and their factories that make things, they need volume. So they all need to be on what's hot at the time. And it changes. So they need to be able to turn. And they got to buy containers and containers full of this product to make it work. So yeah, we've been down that road, the homogenation, a long time. That's why we're so unique here. Not just to be talking about Trav's Outfitter with our selection, but look at Watertown Ford. I mean, they've always had so much selection out right there. I mean, it's crazy the amount of vehicles that they keep out there, and it's differences like that keep you from being the same as everybody else.
Yeah, to do things the way we do it at Trav's Outfitter costs a couple of bucks. I mean, Mike and I sitting at the table here, they say a salesman is the easiest guy to sell, and I'm definitely an easy guy to sell because I'm like, let's take a swing at that. That's why I say that I'm not a professional buyer, because at the end of the day, and we do that sometimes. I'll come in and say, well, these are the 4 shoes that this particular store is using. These are the 4 shoes this particular store is. We see it a lot with Ariat. Yep. Ariat's like, this is what's going on in your area. This is what's going on in the upper Midwest. And we just look at it, we just take the paper and we just throw it off to the side. Because at the end of the day, we do what works at Trav's Outfitter. And that just does not happen in big chains and in big stores.
Correct.
What do you say to the consumer today who's faced with tough choices? They can go to these local businesses or they can go to big box retailers and say get their groceries there, but the wallet book is a little bit thinner than it was just a year, maybe even 2 years ago now. Mm-hmm. So what do you say to those people who are faced with this decision where we want to support local, but there's this other exterior force that has an effect on them?
Well, the one thing that I would say is that's a real question, and those are real concerns. my belief, this is where we're probably going to get in trouble, but my belief is this, is that even when times have been really, really tight for me, there's been things that I'm still spending money on that I don't need to be. And that's how I've made my decision in the past. So when Sherry and I started dating, you guys will laugh. When we started dating, my wife she was my girlfriend at the time, but she was one of these. We had Econo Foods in town, County Fair, Hy-Vee. It might have been a Walmart. Walmart might have had groceries, might not have, doesn't matter. But she would take every flyer for you young kids. There used to be like a paper newspaper that got delivered every day in Watertown. And you'd take the flyers and she would write down, I'm going to buy these items from Econo Foods and these items from County Fair and these items from here and these items. And this was on sale, this was on sale, this was on sale. And so she had it all figured out. And my deal was, at that time, we were small. I worked for Surplus Sales, the outfitter uptown. Walmart had just come into Watertown, had decimated just categories, not completely our business, but decimated categories like fleece. Just took that business away from us, just overnight, boom, it was gone. And so I had this resentment, and I said to Sherry, I said, if we're going to date, if we're going to live together, if we're going to do whatever, I can't have anything from Walmart. We don't give Walmart any money because I'm one of these guys that, as a retailer, we vote, right? And so she goes, well, but look, half of my sheet is Walmart. They're like the cheapest price. I said, okay, so here's the deal I'm going to make you. I want you to make a chart. You already got this sheet. And I want you to go wherever. I don't care. There used to be a pharmacy uptown called Value Care Pharmacy. It's where Gather is now. I said, I don't care if you go buy toothpaste at Value Care Pharmacy, and toothpaste was like 3 times the money. I said, it doesn't matter. You just keep track of it. You total it all up, draw a line, and then you give me that number at the bottom, and I'll write you a personal check. I said, that way you get the cheapest price, and I get nothing from Walmart in my house. I never, not once, ever wrote her a check for more than $30. So some of that is between our ears too.
Yeah, each family's got to decide on their own.
Sure.
They're gonna decide. There's no way we're gonna sit here and make those decisions. And in today's world, just ease of ordering is so convenient, right? I mean, you're out of something, you could put it in your cart for whoever and have it delivered in 3 days, sort of thing. So, but that's where it falls back on us as small businesses. We have to make it worthwhile for our citizens, our community, to come out and see us. It's up to us. We can't force them. We can't make them. And that's the challenge of businesses, small businesses, local businesses. You can't just do it like everybody else. They can get anything they want on the internet. There's no doubt about it. We carry all of these brands, but with each brand, we only carry a certain style. But you can pick any brand out there that's on Amazon or on the internet, and every style in their catalog is available. So you have that right there going against you, but you got to make it worthwhile. You got to do something different, whether it's service, whether it's friendliness, whether it's the atmosphere. You got to do something different within your business to make them want to come shop with you and maybe spend a couple extra bucks.
Free coffee. That's one of the things that we do here.
Yeah, or water. Or community involvement, or, I mean, whatever, a myriad of things, right? And I said this long before Mike came to work for us, but I'll say it now. I'm always amazed. On the weekends, I don't work many weekends anymore, but when I drive by, I'm always amazed on a Saturday if I've got to run some errands or something, I come by here, and there's 10 cars in the parking lot. I shouldn't, you guys probably laugh at me, but I'm amazed. I thank God for that. Because those 10 cars don't have to come in this parking lot. I know that they don't. They're making a conscious decision to pull into this parking lot. And so I think that's the other part that a lot of times, and I frankly fall into it sometimes too. I get frustrated. Business is hard right now. but I still have to keep that wonder. I still have to be amazed and thankful when people come and do business with us. And I think that thankfulness helps us work harder, right? I mean, it helps us be more creative. So
there's a lot to be said for gratitude and how that affects how you just live your daily life and how ultimately you run your business. Going back to, I don't want to keep comparing, but local businesses, they're the ones that are writing checks to be involved in community events. So why is it so important that we continue to have a healthy, fabric of, a number of businesses that continue to be involved, but also not just the same businesses sponsoring the same events every year?
That continues to be more challenging all the time. It ends up to be the same players at the table, between, and Mike's talked about them a little bit, but, we're so blessed in Watertown with what the Sharp family does and what the Driscolls do. It's probably hundreds of thousands of dollars every year that just those two organizations contribute to the lifestyle of those in Watertown. And so that's just two really huge, beautiful examples. I mean, they do a great job. But at the end of the day, the fact of the matter is, and I know people are roll their eyes again, but we have to make it before we can give it away. And so in order to make it, folks have to choose us. So
yeah, and you're always going to have the same people at the table until other businesses that have just started get going. I mean, they right out of the gate, you just can't be contributing to everything. You got to pick and choose. You got to be really selective. So that takes time. That takes time for them to build up their revenue stream and their ability to do that. So, and that's fine. You know what I mean? That's part of giving back to the community that we want to do, and other businesses like us to support the community, the citizens that have come and supported us. It's a way we can give back.
This is bringing it back to Watertown here. What would you guys give the state of business in Watertown, local business in Watertown? Is it good, trending towards going the other way, or do you see it on the national level? Is it about the same? Are we doing better here in Watertown than maybe in the state or nationally?
Yeah, I don't know. Nationally is kind of all over the place, it seems like. And I wouldn't want to be on one of the coasts. I mean, that would not be fun. Just from in our industry, what we hear is that's where it's really tough. In Watertown, I would say business is kind of flat to down overall. That's what we're hearing in the community. And that goes back to that question you had about dollars availability. It's not businesses that aren't doing a good job. It's not because they've got the wrong stuff. It's just there's less dollars out in the economy right now that are being traded around. I mean, I don't know what the current is, but I remember a study that had happened about dollars when you spend it. It was like the same dollar gets traded 10 times when you spend it with local businesses. So that has an effect when the dollars are smaller.
Yeah, and I think right now it's the reason it's challenging is this. I think that we have all different types of people, but I'm going to generalize. You have families that have young children. Mom and dad are both working hard, but at the end of the day, there's only so much money at the end of the month, right? And so one thing that studies show, and Mike can speak to this more, but young people, in their late 20s, in their 30s, experiences are more important to them than items, right? And so part of those experiences is as their children get older and they're involved in athletics, getting Johnny or Sally to an event in Sioux Falls or Minneapolis, that trumps a new pair of shoes or whatever it might be, a new outfit for a lady or whatever. And so there's some of that. There's just only so much money in the market space. The other part of it is, and I think the biggest part of this is a bigger part that we don't think about. There's a lot of wealth in Watertown, South Dakota, a lot of wealth. And what happens is people don't become wealthy by spending every dime they make, right? And so there's a lot of folks that have a lot of resources. And what happens is because there's a glut of product, not just in our industry, but everybody's industry. When things aren't too good and people have been successful and they're savers, not spenders, they just close a checkbook, right? They're like, I can make these shoes go another couple of months. It's no problem. And so I think those are two factors that are going on. And we're still doing business. We're still doing a nice amount of business. But I think those are two factors on two of the other ends of the spectrum that are happening. Either people don't really want it or need it, or they just don't have the resources for it.
What's the best thing that local businesses have going for them right now in Watertown?
Well, the one thing I would say is, as a community, Watertown has a lot of civic pride. I mean, we just do. There's a lot of naysayers, and everybody's going to complain about the streets and the walking parks and the this and the that and the everything else. But again, Laura and I went down to Thursday Night Live last night. It was a motorcycle show, and there are a lot of people out there. And you know what? 99% of them had smiles on their faces, and to me, that's a little bit of a bellwether. Laura and I went out we had some family stuff, so we didn't get out to Cooking on Capeska until kind of later on Saturday night, and there are a lot of people out there. And so when people are participating in those things, and when you see them at events like that, it tells you that they're proud and they're happy of the community that they live in, and so. Yeah, I mean, I think that's one thing that we've really got going for us is that there is that civic pride and people, not everybody gets along with everybody, but for the most part, I mean, I saw it last night, I saw it Saturday night, people are excited to see each other when they get out and they do sort of social events.
Another thing I would say is Watertown has more to offer than what you hear on social media. I sat in on one of the groups for H2O50. I know you did too, Travis. And it was interesting. It started out, well, we need this, we need that, we need this. And as we talked it through in the group, most of what was being asked for, we provided. We provided the events. We have the venues. We have the shopping in different places. So people are like, oh, I didn't know about that. I didn't know about this. We have a great offering in Watertown, South Dakota. What we don't have is great communication as to what's going on and what people has. And there's a part of it, I'll blame the internet for that. I'll blame social media. We don't have radio like we used to. We don't have newspapers like we used to. We don't have the central place that you went every week and looked at what's going on. I mean, back in the day, the public opinion, I don't remember what day it was. I think it might have been Thursday. So this is what's going on. Here's what's going on this weekend and next week. And it was kind of that every Thursday. You knew where to go and look at it in the paper. That's gone because it's all digital and it's all chopped up. It's not together in one concise format. One radio station has a little bit here, another one has it there. The paper's in Aberdeen, so who knows what they have anymore. Mm-hmm. And then the people running the events, they don't know where to put it anymore. So it's hard that way. So we have a lot to offer. We got to figure out a way for our community to figure out what it is to find that information.
I started delivering newspapers when I was 10 years old, so I worked for Kenny Way, who, I don't know what he was, second generation, whatever, but a newspaper man. And the one thing that the newspaper did, and I will say this on our podcast, KXLG has taken the torch from a radio standpoint. You know what the newspaper was? The newspaper was like a cheerleader for your community. They were.
Yes.
They took stories, in whether they were tragic, whether they were sad or happy, they were a cheerleader. And KXLG, from a radio station standpoint, does that for Watertown still. They're a cheerleader for our community. That's one thing. That's one thing that many communities don't have. They don't have that. And so I think we're blessed here in Watertown to still have KXLG doing that. But I would agree with Mike that digitally, somehow, some way, we have to find a group of people or whatever it might be that can be the cheerleader, that can be the reminder to people that even though things aren't great and they aren't exactly the way we want them, they're not horrible either, right? It's just a reminder of, that back to that gratitude piece.
Yeah. Well, Shane, you're the marketing guy here. You're our marketing manager, so you're involved in all the social media. You know that. But at the end of the day, you can do everything possible, and we do everything possible. You and your team do everything possible to get our message out there. But at the end of the day, we're beholden to the algorithm. The algorithm decides what we see.
Absolutely.
We can try and trick it. We can try and guide it, but the algorithm just decides. And so it's getting back to the 80s again now. The machines are starting to take over. I'm telling you watch a few movies in the 80s and you should learn some things.
Tragically, they were more right than they were wrong.
Yeah. And to Mike's point, we can do everything that we can. We've tried pretty much everything, but you cannot literally take a person's hand and walk them into the store. We can get them to that point basically, but we can't force them to come in.
But through those algorithms, you can only reach certain people too. I mean, that's the other part of what's happened. The homogenation, if that's my word for the day, even of social interaction. Right.
Yep.
I mean, so there's some of that going on too,
and it's ever changing. Changes every day, every week. Yep. So, the last question I'll pose to you is to you both is a two-part question. It's what piece of advice would you give to another local small business owner, and what piece of advice would you give to the consumer with where we're at in Watertown right now?
Well, to other small business owners, what I would say is sort of keep fighting the good fight. Keep doing the next right thing. We've said that around here for a long time, and sometimes you do the next right thing in your personal life and your business life, and it still doesn't work out the way that you'd hoped that it would. But don't let that deter you. Keep doing the next right thing. And frankly, I would say if you don't have a network of people that you can visit with once in a while, I said earlier that I was on the phone with Joy. I feel so blessed that, Joy and I, we touch base every 2-3 weeks. And I don't know, there's probably not much I can say to encourage Joy, but when I visit with her, I feel encouraged. So find a network of other people, they don't have to be business owners, but find a network of other people that can sort of pick you up, hold you up when things aren't looking so good and when you're frustrated or you're feeling down. I think that's really important because really our mental state of mind really can change the feeling of our businesses, and it can change how our employees feel. And so that's a really delicate thing that has to be looked after. The one thing I would say to the consumer is thank you. Thank you for the business that you give small businesses in Watertown. And they don't, like Mike said, they're not all small, but any business that you do in Watertown, you're making a decision. You're voting for Watertown. I've said that before. The consumer votes. They vote with their dollars. And so I would just say thank you for that. We talked about that a little bit before this podcast. I think the biggest mistake that we've made from Chamber of Commerce standpoints, from city standpoints, is we've and this is nothing new. This is 20 years old, 15 years old. Shop local, shop local, shop local. When we say it that way, that's like demanding people shop local. That's like telling people where to spend their hard-earned money. And I think that's so wrong. I think it should be, would you consider shopping local? Please consider shopping local. I think that goes a lot further, and I think it's more palatable, and I think that the average consumer, when they hear that, it reaches them someplace different than just saying shop local. and so I would say to the consumer that each purchasing decision that they make, they're voting. And so wherever they shop, they're voting for that place, and they have every right to do that. But there's bigger things at play. And I'll go back to what I said earlier. The thought process that, it's really no big deal if this place folds up because somebody else is going to come along. We just have to keep in mind that when that happens, almost always we trade for something less. We almost always trade for less service, less quality, less civic involvement. Almost always we trade for that. And so we just have to be cognizant of that. So that's what I would say. I would say thanks. Thanks for the business that you do in Watertown.
Yeah, I would agree with that. With our citizens, our community is the thank you portion, and just, I don't know what else to say there. They get that. Travis said said it for a long time. They get to vote, and so we just have to be appreciative of that. And I would just say, just continue to give local businesses a chance. At least check them out, try them out, get to know them, get to know how they're involved, because they're a big, important part of the fabric of this community. It's why we have so many great things to offer in Watertown, from ballparks to ice rinks to bike paths to pickleball courts to just events and parades and all the different things that we have going on, is because of local businesses. For local businesses, we just got to keep fighting the good fight. Just get up every day and go to work and find out what your niche is. Find out why you're different, and stick with it. Don't try to be the same as everybody else. Don't homogenize it. Be unique. Find something unique. And maybe product isn't it. Maybe you can't find the unique product. We don't have anything unique that other things don't, but do something different. The way you treat your customers, the way you treat your employees, the way you get them involved in the community. There's a lot of different things that business owners can do that way to be unique.
Anything else that you want to leave our listeners with today before we wrap up?
Want to get political?
Oh, I love to do that.
So you guys, so this falls right into it. I am 28. Mm-hmm. Initiated measure 28 about consumables.
Yep.
I'm not going to give an opinion here. I'm just going to put a pitch out that if you haven't heard of Initiated Measure 28, which is to remove the tax on all consumables, not just groceries, but tobacco, vaping, everything. You got to do your research, because it will have a direct effect on what's available in your community for options. I think I can talk these guys into doing a whole podcast on this later. We need to, but it's scary to think if that. No, I'm going to give my opinion. It's going to be scary if that passes.
Yes.
For our community.
It's going to be tragic.
For our schools.
Yes.
For our city.
Yes.
For our streets and roads.
Yes.
Everyone's always mad at the roads here in Watertown. You get rid of that, it's going to be tough.
Yeah, I think that folks have to keep in mind, and I'm going to say this. I don't like paying taxes any more than anybody else does. I don't.
That's true.
That's
very true.
I don't. But it's all part of it. And in South Dakota, we're still taxed at a very low level compared to other states around the U.S. And so at the end of the day, we just have to be careful how much of this stuff we roll back, right? It's a little bit like some of these other foolhardy things that other politicians nationally are telling us, right? We're like the mouse and the cheese in the trap, right? The cheese looks really good and tasty until you get in the trap. And so I think that we have to trust our legislators. We have to trust what they're doing with our funds. And I don't agree with every one of them, but at the end of the day, I just think we got to be careful how much of this sales tax stuff that we're repealing. I'll be frank, from our standpoint, what a pain in the neck, 6.2%. It's just a pain in the neck. So, and personally, I believe that the sales tax is a fair tax. I believe that. And a lot of people don't, but I believe that. I believe that if I can only afford to buy hamburger and Mike can afford prime rib, I pay 6% or 6.2% tax on hamburger, and he pays 6.2% on prime rib. And so that's just my personal opinion. Hopefully that doesn't lose one of the 18 listeners that we've got on the podcast. But,
Yeah.
We're looking to get a little bit better numbers than that, Travis. But that'll definitely be a future podcast. You can look forward to that in the coming months. And that's a wrap for episode 5. I can't believe this has already been the 5th episode of our Trav's Outfitter podcast. Remember to like, subscribe, and rate wherever you prefer to listen to your podcast, or give us a view on YouTube. You can watch the full-length video there. And we'll come out with episode 6 in a couple weeks. Thanks for listening.